The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Hell yeah.
That bottle poured like it had an important name on it.
That is kind of the classic name and label right there.
I mean, wait a minute. If you don't know this name, maybe
what the fuck are you doing listening to this show?
So we're going to tell people who it is.
I'm on the intro today?
That's all right.
I would have researched or something.
Bart Hansen on the show today, Sam Couturi, Danielle Langlois.
Hello.
Nice to meet your family the other day, by the way.
Oh, yes, they really enjoyed themselves at
Very
16600.
Sweet people. But we are on today with Alycia Mondavi, who, I mean, we're going to get into family history and all those things, but like just currently, Mondavi Sisters Collection, CK Mondavi, Dark Matter, Antimatter. Is that still a thing?
Antimatter is actually a brand that we haven't officially launched. It goes live in November.
Nice going, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Humble Beginnings and Aloft.
Yes.
Among other things.
Yes.
Welcome to Sonoma.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I know, we originally had the opportunity to sit down and meet with you, and we weren't sure exactly what we were going to talk about. Never met before, but then you came here early and we realized that you're actually a super cool person. So we're going to have a fun show today.
Perfect.
We were worried.
We always, when people from Napa come over, we're always a little on edge.
We had this conversation earlier, actually. Alycia showed up early and she's like, yeah, the whole rivalry thing. And I said, I don't think it is so much anymore. There's a lot more collaboration going on. But I said it was all jealousy on our side of someone, producing 3% of the grapes in California and getting 90% of the attention. But I think, who are we to
Sounds
talk?
like you're totally over it, Brian.
Who are we to talk in Sonoma? We're around 5%, and I think we get a little attention. But I think right now, with the wine industry, we all need to be friends.
Yes.
And I don't think there are enemies anymore except people that are doing horrible shit. Which you are obviously not doing.
Nope. My family's been in the industry now for 108 years, and and the family has dabbled both in Sonoma County and Napa County over that.
Right. Talk about that
span.
a little bit, about how people think of Mondavi as Napa, but actually there's a lot of Sonoma history.
Yeah. The name is actually now has made a global impact on various levels. You had my great grandfather Cesare and his beautiful wife Rosa, my great grandmother Rosa, that made the move from northern central Italy, a little town called Sassoferrato, and they made the move to, of all places, Virginia, Minnesota. Ended up in a mining community, ended up deciding to get out of mining. They purchased the local grocery store. And
thank God, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what my great grandparents never anticipated were the locals came and knocked on the grocer's door to source their grapes to make their household wines. So they began sourcing grapes from California. A lot of it was actually coming from Lake County because that was a more established wine region back then. And they were shipping it either railway or truck and then brokering it amongst the Minnesota community. So fast forward a handful of years, prohibition ends up hitting. Suddenly it's illegal for anybody to purchase alcohol, but there was one caveat that everyone could produce, every household could produce up to 200 gallons of wine for, so always air quote, medicinal and religious purposes only. And as my family jokes, suddenly everybody was sick and praying for good health. And my great grandparents' business flourished at that point. And they had the opportunity and the ability to broker grapes all up and down the entire U.S., not just California. California. In fact, I actually got a phone call just a few weeks ago from a gentleman and who's a wine buyer at a restaurant in Illinois, and he called me up to tell me that he heard I was in town and called his buddy, who I was in the car with, and he said my great grandparents used to source their household wines during Prohibition from your great grandparents, and they lived in Iowa. So I was like, so we have fun stories throughout the family's legacy of being in the industry on that level.
And what's childhood like growing up over there? Is it expected you're going into the business, or are they trying to get you out of there? And
Save your soul. Get out of here.
Yes.
With that many siblings, you have to figure out how many people can you feed, right?
Exactly. Mom and dad were working on their own farmers and teams, so vineyard crews. So there's, I have 3 sisters, so 4 of us total. Mom and dad did put us to work at a very young age. So they actually had us clocking in at 8 a.m. and clocking out at 5 p.m. Every summer from the age of 10 on.
I was going to ask exactly what age, because that's what I heard. It was 10 years old.
10 years old. So by the age of 12, all my sisters and I were training any adult or UC Davis graduate that came through our doors on how to run any analysis on a bottle of wine you could possibly imagine. We were only making 25 cents an hour while they were coming in making the $10 an hour. And we were teaching them how to run pH, VA, sugar, alcohol, you name it. That's what that was.
And that's not coming in a check. Are you getting cash at the end of the week for your 25 cents an hour?
So mom and dad actually deposited the 25 cents an hour into a bank account. We never saw that money, but we paid taxes on that money. And little did we know when we all graduated high school that that bank account was released to us as kind of a fun little drinking spending money, I guess, through college. Yeah. So it wasn't much, but it was a little something. And it educated us. It gave us a work ethic. It taught us and introduced us to the family business at a very young age. And then we also learned taxes at a young age also.
Can we go back just a little bit, because we may not have another Mondavi on the show anytime? Can you talk about the move?
Pinging your cousin Carlo.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about how you ended up in Napa? How did that happen?
So,
and those generations.
Yeah. So it was when Prohibition, when my great grandparents' business flourished, because they expanded their great brokering business from Minnesota to the entire U.S. And it was about 1918 when they had started that, or brokering grapes, and it was the mid 30s is when they got the opportunity and decided that they wanted to relocate closer to also avoid some of the harsher winters and relocate to California. But my great grandparents noticed Napa Valley was very reminiscent of much of Europe, and it had that beautiful Mediterranean climate. Beautiful, perfect growing weather. And so they decided, well, we have an opportunity to relocate and be closer to where the grape source is coming from. And that's probably an avenue we want to explore. And it was at that point that they had made the move. My great grandparents actually invested in a cooperative winery, a co-op. It was called Sunny St. Helena, now today known as Maryvale. Yeah. And then there was only a few other wineries. So you had Christian Brothers. Right. You had BV. Inglenook was another one, also in Beringer. And so Charles Krug, which still had their doors.
Bruise your fingernail episode.
Yeah. So my great grandparents actually got a phone call, and it was Bank of Italy out of San Francisco. They were friends with the president back then, and they received a phone call that was, we actually have a winery for sale that's coming up on the market, and that was Charles Krug Winery. So oldest winery in Napa Valley, established in 1861. So while they sat down in the room with Bank of Italy, which today is known as Bank of America. Exactly, B of A. So times have changed. But while they were sitting in the room, they struck a deal to buy the original Charles Krug estate, which is 147 acres. They bought that for $75,000 in 1943.
And is that property still
Can buy a bucket of
It's
dirt
still
out there
owned
for
by the family.
$75,000.
right? So that properity is still held.
It's still held by the
was,
family.
Nothing
Yeah.
was ever pieced off or
Correct.
anything. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So there was as the original estate still 147 acres. It does still retain the two original historic buildings, one built in 1872 and the second one built in 1881, excuse me.
Wait,
And-
what are the buildings?
Well,
So we have one's the carriage house that is now our event venue. We're one of 5 wineries in Napa Valley that can legally host weddings. We're grandfathered in for quite a bit, being the oldest winery. We do get some perks.
Great grandfather did.
Yeah, exactly. Great grandfathered in for that. Yes, and so we host weddings. We can host a lot of charitable events. We actually just had Andrea Bocelli perform on property. We had 4,500 people on property on Saturday,
Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah.
right. Well, and you guys, you
Send
got
it in the dings later.
right. Your
Post production, Ed.
the reason why I've been there is because you've hosted trade educational programs there.
Correct,
You
we
know,
do that.
Napa Green is held there.
Yep.
There's been other things that's been done over the year, and I have to say the carriage house is awesome, just because it's just so beautiful and been redone so nice. And then what you guys did in the barrel room, in where the tasting room at least exists at this point,
Yes.
is spectacular, like visually for
Thank you.
people who.
Yeah, we were oldest tasting room in Napa Valley was actually a little double wide that we officially ripped down in 2015 and opened,
Oh,
relocated.
did you keep any pieces of that?
No, we did, but we let my grandfather take first swing of the building because he woke up the day before and decided, oh, we need to keep the original building, and we're like, it needs to go. It's termite infested. It's falling apart. Grandpa is a very humble double wide that needed to go, but we were able to relocate the tasting room into one of the historic buildings, which was our redwood cellar. It was dubbed the redwood cellar because it housed all of our redwood tanks that my great grandfather Cesare built. We didn't have access to French oak barrels at the time, so he built them out of redwood.
I know. Can we talk about that just for a second? Because I've heard stories of that, but then I always wondered what wine tastes like that has been aged in redwood.
Yeah. Well, okay, they become neutral after a certain point.
So,
So,
do you
they
think
became
the
more of
first
a
couple times you
vessel.
use them that it's probably
I would
off-putting?
I think it has a more neutral component to it than French oak has, but I would think that the first few years were a little, and those barrels were built in 43 for us. And so we actually kept one tank in place, and we were still using those redwood tanks, through most of my childhood working at the winery. I was still pulling samples from those redwood tanks. So at that point, they became neutral vessels that we were utilizing. But at one point, we finally did get to the point where nobody knew how to maintain them, fix them, and keep them in operating fully, sealed vats. So, so we ended up dismantling all of them, and we've been repurposing the redwood throughout the
Which
winery.
is worth a fortune.
Yeah, and we have a whole third floor that is still wall-to-wall dismantled redwood staves that we get to utilize.
So
for
are these
projects.
barrels or are they?
No, they
I mean,
were
I think of
tanks.
They're
tanks, right?
tanks. They're
like
tanks. Well, we
upright.
did have barrels all the way to tanks, but the tanks went from the large tanks we had were 6,000 gallons all the way up to 36,000 gallon tanks.
36,000 gallon redwood tanks.
Yes. Yeah.
What I was
Actually-
always sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say a fun plug for Maryvale. They converted a couple of those original redwood tanks because there was only a few wineries that had access to these redwood tanks. They actually have little tasting lounges that they hollowed out their redwood tanks, so you can actually sit in one of these 6,000 gallon redwood tanks.
How big was your tank that so Bart's tasting room is in a building that was a converted redwood
beautiful.
tank.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it's
fun.
a 14,000 gallon
Oh,
tank
fun.
that was in Glen Ellen and
Yeah.
right across the street from where it was in use at.
Oh, fun.
What I was always told is the reason why you use redwood was one, because we didn't have oak here.
Right.
We had redwood. Redwood is straight grained, tight. but the problems was it was very soft, so it's hard to maintain and keep clean. And it has that resinous thing that eventually does go away. But it was, there was a lot
How
of
do
it.
you treat those? Like, is there the toast element to it? Do you wax the inside?
I don't know. I've never heard anything about them ever being toasted.
Yeah.
It seems to me they were all just
straight on
straight-sided.
wood.
Yeah.
The wine went right on that
Yep.
green.
Right?
And
Doesn't
we
that seem
didn't-
weird?
But if you think about redwood's not green. I mean, think about it. Redwood.
Well, I mean, green is like
herbal.
just fresh,
Right?
Yeah.
Like there was no aging. There was no.
But also remember, at that time, a lot of those wines were, they were wines that had distillate put into them, right? Like they weren't just dry. It wasn't they're making Chardonnay.
Yeah.
They were making white wine that probably had alcohol from the still put into it. What was the fortified wines of those eras in the 1800s to 1900s? A lot of gallons of fortified wines, and then also remember they were then shipped out. You guys are right next to the train track.
Yep.
And they would put them on the trains and ship them to San Francisco or to wherever across the country in other containers. It wasn't this.
Yeah.
Right.
And my guess would also be that they were never empty.
And they were probably never
They're probably never empty.
Well, and that's what we used ours from the 40s through the 2015 basically. And that was a trip. There's not a single vintner that I know of today that is still using those old redwood. I know a lot of it's been repurposed. I'd be interested though if there is a vintner still utilizing it.
I follow this guy on Instagram, and these guys, I don't really know what their business is, but one part of their business is they go out and they do maintenance on redwood water tanks that are in, utilities. I mean, public places have them
Little,
still.
like, water districts and stuff like that. Yeah,
but the other thing they do is they buy tanks from wineries and they disassemble it and then they sell the wood.
Oh, interesting.
And they maintenance those things. And right now the last time I communicated with the guy, he kept showing these pictures. I'll share it with you. These pictures of this tank farm. And he wasn't able to say what it was until the contract is done. But it's a tank farm. I mean, they're probably 12 to 20,000 gallon tanks, and there's probably 25 or 30 of them, and that some of them still have wine in them.
That's awesome.
And Martini and Pratti out in Sebastopol, they kept redwood in those tanks. They were using those in the 90s still.
Yep.
So it's still around.
Joel and Uncle Tony.
Right.
Are still I think there's people still using them for fermentations.
Yeah, I would think. I just don't know of any personally that are still utilizing them, but I would think that there is somebody out there that is still, because I mean it's all beautiful wood, and to your point too, redwood being so soft. We actually did in our carriage house, the top floor was converted. We have a dance floor. And we originally used the redwood as the floor. It's the whole ceilings are lined with it, and it smells like you're in a cellar because the way that it was milled down, the wood did soak in and absorb some of the wine characteristics over the years, and so it's kind of this most amazing, intoxicating smell when you're in the carriage house. But the dance floor we did line with the redwood, and only a few years later we had to rip it up because the heels were doing some damage. So it was like there were just dents everywhere, and so we're like, we need something a little hardier for the floor, but it makes a beautiful ceiling presentation.
Let's talk about wine a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Let's
what?
So you actually brought 3 different labels today.
Correct.
And so we popped the CK Mondavi Sauvignon Blanc at first, and what really caught my eye when I was looking at the labels was ingredients list.
Oh,
right. Which we were talking earlier, we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, and we're super curious, like what was the inspiration for doing that on the bottles?
So CK Mondavi, this is a brand my grandfather launched in 1946. So it gave the family kind of a second label opportunity. They had a focus of the luxury brands. Mind you, Cabernets back then were like $6 a bottle. So
yeah. So what's the second label Cabernet?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it truly became their bulk table wine that they were selling in larger vessels and bottles, I should say. And
It was sort of their Carlo Rossi kind of.
I think,
entrance.
well, and I mean, this was actually CK Mondavi was the first one to market in that in that category.
In the like
set.
gallon jugs.
So
Interesting.
I just want to clarify this a little bit for our listeners. So when we were talking about this previously, it was ingredients list. This is the serving facts and the nutritional facts. Yeah.
Correct.
So
So not as finite on the ingredients, but still using the same ingredients we've been using since 1946 with the great base product.
Yeah.
So we've got our this is now for sale. It's your $6 to $8 bottle of wine. It is a value brand that is offered for any drinkers out there. We have 10 different varietals in the portfolio. I was actually tasked to help the family redesign the label, and one of the hot topics right now for consumers is nutritional facts and transparency on the label. I battle with my own dietary issues, and one of the big ones is gluten. I can't touch gluten with a 10-foot pole. This is a newer issue for me, and within the last 5 years, and actually, full transparency, sat down with my older sister, who happens to be one of our winemakers, and she goes, well, at least wine's gluten-free. And I was like, duh, yeah, that's right. And 2 seconds later, I caught myself going, but is it? And immediately my sister turned around and she goes, you know what? Let me do some more research before we go down further down that rabbit hole. And 2 hours later, she called me up and she's like, you're not going to believe this, but most barrels are lined with a gluten-based product. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what's been making me so sick.
Wow. So they use flour in the head of the barrel.
As a sealing agent.
Yeah. It's not in between the staves. It's just in the head of the barrel where the head meets the crow.
Yeah, and it's trace amounts, but for individuals such as myself, like they have U.S. doctors have all put on record that celiac patients can go to Europe and eat flour, no problem. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those. I can't. So I found myself reacting to a lot of alcohol and could not figure out why. So originally diagnosed as an alcohol allergy. And eventually, couple years later is when I learned that barrels have this gluten-based sealant. And while it's trace amounts, some of us are a little bit more sensitive than others.
So do you know why it is that they say in Europe you can... you were just there?
I was just there. I suffer a similar fate and did not do well when I ate bread in Italy. No, it was
so
regrettable.
I actually have a theory behind that too. I think in the past we may have been able to process the gluten that they have back over there. With the Russia-Ukraine war, I actually did ask one, and Ukraine happens to be the breadbasket for Europe and all of that. And so I happened to ask a top chef at a restaurant that we were dining at, because I did, of course, full disclosure, first day in, I was like, I'm going to try ravioli.
Yeah, give me that bread and olive oil. Been waiting 10 years.
Exactly, only to pay for it. So anyways, but I did sit down with the chef and I asked him about their wheat supplier. And his response was, it used to be Ukraine. And so now my suspicions are the U.S. has stepped in to fill some of that void. These are assumptions, of course. I'm not.
So we can assume that it's
now been sprayed with glyphosate as a desiccant before it leaves the field.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, that's would be the most likely, if you looked at culprits of why. Yeah. But there's probably other things. Yeah. There's probably other things they're doing it they're not telling us.
Well, like heirloom varieties. I think we just have tweaked things so much here in the United States.
Right, all the hybridized.
Right. Just kind of unnatural.
There's been a lot of manipulation over the years, and I feel like now more than ever there's a need for transparency on where that manipulation's taking place and what's being done or added. But then also there is a demand for no manipulation moving forward. Mm-hmm. And that is something that my family has been like, we're so eager. We've actually, my sisters and I've been, we've been asking the family, like, let's put nutritional facts labels on, on all of our wines, all of our brands. And, part of, we have team members that are like, that doesn't make sense. Why would we ever do that? And I was all, because we have nothing to hide and we shouldn't have anything to hide. Obviously that's not applicable across the board for every vintner, but it is something that that I think my family is more than ever being, and especially now that there are dietary issues and restrictions that are starting to now directly affect the family, that is forced us to go, no, we need to look at some of these and figure out where we can clean things up and where we can be transparent and provide products, the best product we possibly can with little to no manipulation.
I mean, this wine's delicious, especially at that price point. I mean,
what was the price point?
This is your $6 to $8 bottle of wine. You'll find this
would
is
have
your
a hard time
brand.
stopping at that part of the store,
Yeah, so we, obviously we can't legally add sugar, but it's all naturally sweetened, grape-based, products from grape. We don't have to add anything to sweeten it. We just, stop fermentation, so we've got a little residual sugar left over in some of these, but less than 1 gram of sugar. So we've called out transparency on that. Gluten-free, vegan-friendly. Some of those issues and concerns that consumers have across the board.
Carbohydrates. I don't understand what the relation is.
So carbs, that's an FDA mandate as well. Believe it or not, I think nutritional facts in the beverage sector is so new that FDA is still trying to figure it out. We actually did have one fact on the label submitted to TTB. They approved it. Then we made one other change to the label, resubmitted it, and the second time around, they denied it based on one of the original nutritional facts that we had listed. On the wrong person's desk. Exactly. So I was like, I don't even think that they fully understand what it is that they're asking or requiring. So this is our starting point for my family and I, is to at least bear all the information and transparency on the immediate big topic items. And then I foresee us actually going even further eventually and getting into ingredients and all of that as well.
How many cases is CK Mondavi?
It's about 800,000 cases now. Yeah. So
and that's down from what it probably was.
We've always been about a million cases. So we have decreased over the years. Obviously consumption's down at the moment also. We do, what's beautiful behind the CK Mondavi brand is, since this has been around since 1946, most of the fruit, we have 1,800 acres, one county over in Yolo County, Dunnigan Hills. So we absorb a lot of our own fruit and estate fruit for this brand, but then we have a lot of handshake deals still with families and growers in the area also that help provide the excess fruit that's needed to get that production.
So it's primarily Yolo, Napa, Sonoma.
Yep. It's all California grown. Yeah. So, and we do have some products. Sometimes Mother Nature, as we all know here in this room, she's not as friendly, and you might have a beautiful Petit Verdot from Napa that just doesn't ripen to our liking, and it won't hit the Charles Krug label, but we happen to have a second tier label that we can blend that into.
2025 is looking like one of those vintages.
Yeah. So how do you get around the flour in the barrels? You just don't use barrels for these wines, or you buy certain barrels that...
Yeah, you actually answered it. I was shocked. Earlier, you mentioned it, wax.
Wax.
So
gotcha.
there's 2 sealing agents that, and Europe has always had the option. They haven't extended it to the U.S. until more recently. There are cooperages that, like Demtos, for example, they have leaned more heavily into the wax product. They're also finding it... it doesn't sound glamorous, but they're finding it's a little bit more beneficial to deter boar beetles and things like that. So the wax product I think has a lot more benefits. Plus, it doesn't have to deal with.
And then is the wax 100% beeswax, or do you know?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. Because now you asked that. I'm like, actually, I don't know what it is.
It can't be because
it's vegan. So it's got to be some sort of paraffin.
Right? Yeah. So
that was always a big sticking point on vegans. You never think
about
Yeah.
That is true.
Probably paraffin. I mean,
paraffin.
You know, that's what was used to seal and still to this day with people that have wood doors.
Mm-hmm.
All those tanks and barrels up at Mayacamas.
Yeah,
they have a Chris Russ is a paraffin expert at this point.
You need one if you have those tanks. You need someone that loves those and understands them.
Hey Bart, they make Chenin Blanc.
I know they do.
This is
all the cool kids.
I was really excited that you brought this because it was, the wine that I noticed that I was hoping you bring, but I didn't want to ask specifically for it.
Brian was shy,
so
demure.
Talk about this brand, this label. And how this all came about.
Yeah, actually.
It's a beautiful label, first of all. That's just like gorgeous. Stunning.
So that's my forte. I geek out on branding, label designs, packaging designs. My older sister makes the wine. I try to sell everything she makes. We have a third sister, Rihanna. She actually oversees the Charles Krug hospitality department now, but was 12 years as one of our financial sales managers. And then my youngest sister, Giovanna, she's still our black sheep, lives in Denver and works in finance. Anyways, we kind of joke and say mom and dad unintentionally raised an executive team. So we have every department head covered with Angelina, the oldest sister, being the winemaker. So that being said, though, having the experience and knowledge of working in the business at a very young age, we do have written into our bylaws that each family member has to work outside the family business for 5 years before we're allowed to be considered and qualified to be considered for a position at the winery. So, so that being said, we all graduated college, took different paths. I decided I wanted to go into law, ended up paralegaling for 7 years, 8 years total with the certification program that I had to go through. But I cut my teeth there. And before I was supposed to go to law school, sat my parents down and said, I'm not going. And my dad goes, that's great. We don't have a job for you at the winery. And I said, that's fine. I wasn't asking for a job. I'm just telling you, I'm not going to law school anymore. And with that said, my dad goes, okay, well, what are you going to do? And that's when I informed him I wanted to get back into the wine business. And then I was actually trying to find a job in the wine industry. Believe it or not, when you've got the last name Mondavi, nobody wants to open their doors to let you work in there. Yeah, they're like,
it's like blessing and a curse.
Exactly. It was. It came down to nobody wanted their trade secrets to be shared, with competitors. And so I was having the hardest time even trying to secure a tasting room job. And I did have a marketing consultant that ended up hiring me, and her forte was launching small high-end brands, predominantly for the billionaires that were coming into our valleys.
Interesting.
And so that's where I got my expertise and learned how to launch a brand. And while at that same time I was cutting my teeth there, my sister was actually making wines for Jason Woodbridge, 100 Acre. And so she was getting a breadth of knowledge on a global level. And then, as I mentioned, Rihanna was working in sales. So we were all kind of involved in wine, but our grandfather had just made a gift, and here we ended up with some property and some money. And to avoid taxes, we decided to do a 1031 exchange and rolled it into our very first parcel owned by the sisters. And that was in 2005. 2003. We bought the second one in 2005. So Dark Matter was officially launched 20 years ago. We were all under legal drinking age, so I don't even know if it was technically legal, but we did it. And then a few years later, we ended up launching the Aloft brand once we acquired our second parcel on Hell Mountain. And so we had Dark Matter Zinfandel, and then we had our Aloft Cabernet from two separate Hell Mountain properties. And then only 6 years ago, we added the Chenin Blanc to the mix. And Chenin Blanc for us was a must. Selfishly, I have a white wine drinking palate, so I really wanted to add a white wine to the sisters' portfolio and kept begging my older sister. I'm like, can we introduce a white wine yet? Please. I was like, I want something I love drinking on a daily. Yeah. And so we immediately landed on Chenin Blanc because my grandfather was known as the pioneer of Chenin Blanc in California. my grandfather, while his brother, Robert Mondavi, was the marketing genius and the networker of the two, my grandfather was the innovator of the two. So he was actually responsible for, he and another vintner, responsible for introducing French oak barrels to the U.S. My grandfather developed cold fermentation and cold stabilization, never patented it because he felt it only bettered the industry. So, and forever changed winemaking as we know it on a global level. And so with his cold fermentation and cold stabilization, it put Chenin Blanc on the map. And before we knew it, Charles Krug was producing over 300,000 cases of Chenin Blanc in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
And where is this?
What a wonderful
property?
world.
Yeah. So,
is there 400,000 cases of Chenin Blanc made in California anymore?
Right. No. So once we decided that we wanted to make a Chenin Blanc, that of course was the easy part. The hard part was finding Napa Valley Chenin Blanc. And there were a few growers. We reached out to all the growers that we knew had it, and everybody said, no, we absorb it all. We take it all for ourselves. And so we decided, we're just going to have to plant our own. And while we were kind of gearing up to put a plan together to plant our own, we got a phone call from a friend, and he called us up and said, a little birdie told me you girls are looking for Chenin Blanc. You're not going to believe what I just bought. And so my older sister and I put our truck literally in neutral, coasted down the backside of Howell Mountain, and ended up into this heritage vineyard. It's 4 acres. We get access to 2 acres of it. And we're like, what do you know about this vineyard? And he goes, I actually don't know much, but it was owned by the Eckel family. And I'm like, well, I grew up with one of the Eckel boys. I'll give him a call. And lo and behold, we learned that this vineyard was originally planted by our grandfather for their grandfather, and it still is the original vine. So these are about 85-year-old vines in this bottle. Yeah.
That's a great story.
So, yep. And the Eckel family was making their own kind of field blend white wine out of it. And then they had a Chenin sparkling before they had sold it. But that property was in the family for.
What was the name of the label? The Eccles?
You know, I actually don't know what they produced it under, but it's something that I should seek out because I'd die to get my hands on one of those bottles and just see what was being done on the property back then. My grandfather, Peter Sr., he was he never wanted to spend more than $1,000 an acre. And we own about 950 acres in Napa Valley. Of the 950, 850 were purchased under the $1,000 an acre.
Wow.
Yes. And so once it started peaking over that $1,000 an acre, that's
Shrewd
when
Peter Mondavi.
Once it started peaking over $1,000 an acre, that's when Grandpa started phoning a friend. And he had lots of friends, Sonoma County and Napa County. And he would phone them up and said, you have the land. I will develop it, farm it, and pay and buy the fruit from you every year, as long as I can keep maintaining the property and farming it as I wish. And he had a lot of friends that did that for him. And so he had access to quite a bit of fruit over the years. And naturally, that was when there was only 5 wineries, and now we've got over 650 in Napa Valley. So times have definitely changed. But
all right, so you drink a lot of white wine. What other? Just kind of shout out some of the wines you like to drink.
Champagne. Throw champagnes in front of me. I'm a big champagne drinker. I love my Cremants. But honestly, dirty martinis, Grey Goose up was always my drink of choice. So, and I think it's safe to say in our world, a lot of vintners drink quite a bit of beer and cocktails. I wonder
if your attraction to white wine has to do with your reaction to having drank wines that were made in barrels.
1,000%. Because I was always reacting to them and never realized.
Yeah, you're always like, why do I feel so terrible? I'm not drinking red wine anymore.
Yeah.
That's gross. Yeah.
And honestly, it is still something I gave up alcohol 5 years ago, and I have not revisited just because of the fact I do have to spend a little time going down the rabbit hole and reach out to producers and ask, what kind of sealing agent are you using on your barrels? What does have? And I travel quite a bit, and everybody goes, well, why don't you try this one? It's gluten-free and all of that. And I'm like, I have not had a sip in 5 years. I might be on the ground. So I'm going to take it slow, but it's actually on the docket to try this year, and the whole family everybody wants a front row seat to see what happens. So I'll let you know, especially now that we officially have our 2024 vintages are 100% gluten-free, and our whole winery went gluten-free, completely gluten-free as well.
I wonder if, like, new barrels are going to have more wheat making its way into the finished wine.
It depends on the cooperage and whether they're using that wheat-based product or that wax-based product.
Yeah, I think that if you the new oak is going to get the brunt of it.
First run through.
Yeah, so if you're drinking wines that are more, there's less neutral oak influence. Even if they're red and made in barrel, then it's probably would affect you less. But it sounds like you're just very, very, very sensitive.
Yes,
and that is a bummer. And I'm sorry.
I know it is. It's an interesting process to navigate, but that, like I said, it's through my own experience that we recognize that there is a necessity with just being fully transparent for consumers, so that they know if they are as sensitive as me, for example. I know that they would appreciate knowing that there are wines that do have gluten exposure.
My daughter is gluten intolerant and dairy intolerant. And then I know that Sam is, and he turned us on to the fact that because while I was breastfeeding, I couldn't eat dairy or gluten. And otherwise she would just break out in
oh goodness.
Eczema all over her body. It was bad. But he turned us on to the fact that there's gluten in like some of the capsules for pills.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like Tylenol and stuff like I didn't even know. Like it's wild. It's a wild word out
dry
there.
Shampoos. Oh, I got a hard lesson in where there's gluten hidden. Dry shampoos.
Dry shampoo makes sense.
Oh my god! I was breaking out in hives on my scalp.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, I'm not ingesting it. What's going on? And that's when my doctor was like, there's hidden gluten in
everything,
a lot of products, and makeups is a big one, and shampoos. And
so I really respect your family's move to make that easier for people, because I think that we're going to discover, the more people figure out that they feel like crap all the time, that there's reasons, and it's usually things that you are putting in and on your body. And so if we can be honest about what's in the product, then that can make people just live easier and happier lives.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for that too. It's like, sign me up. That's my new goal in life.
Well, and the price point that you offer at it too. Like often I would find that, and Sam has experienced too, but like if you have to order something gluten-free, dairy-free, your $15 burger is now $35. It's like absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I think there's also a problem too with the way FDA regulates and manages things. Like there's certain things under threshold that doesn't have to be reported. That's a problem for those of us that are uber sensitive to certain things. And while it's not mandated by the FDA to be reported on the label, there might still be trace amounts in there that it's under the legal threshold, FDA legal threshold, and so therefore it's not getting reported. But for and that is quite often the case with wine and alcohol and the barrel, the minimal barrel exposure that it gets. But it is something that, like I said, for those of us that are uber sensitive, having that knowledge and being able to pick up a bottle and know that there is no gluten in it is huge. Or it's vegan friendly, or we also have on here solar powered, because we are one of the more larger solar powered wineries in California and things like that. So we're not only taking into consideration a healthier components and transparency, but we're also want to preach, like, we've got to take care of the land, because if we want our legacy to continue for another 100 years, it starts in the land.
Yeah. And organic farming.
And you have to take care of that.
Move there too.
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just have to say that this Aloft, this Chenin Blanc is phenomenal. I really like it.
That's great.
Thank you. Yeah. And once we got access to this property, we only got enough for about 120 cases. So that was a very fun, interesting challenge for myself, because the CK Mondavi label was the first time that I, as a family member, was asked to come back to the family business and actually provide input and advice. And I've been chomping at the bit for years, and just turned 40. And I was like, I finally get an opportunity to help the family. And my older sister, Angelina, at 42, is now consulting for Charles Krug. And they started leaning into her only a couple years ago. And so she's like, hey, the joke in the family is you got to wait till 40 before the family will consider you. But you know, it
sounds familiar.
Yeah. And since we had written into our bylaws and expectations and different requirements for the family corporation, and we're like, okay, well, if there's not a seat yet at the family business table, that's when we decided we were just going to set our own. And the only stipulation was don't produce anything that's competitive with the family portfolio. So my sisters.
How does that work? Yeah.
So we came out much smaller quantities, different varietals, different price points. So
I mean,
the very first,
what do you have to stay away from a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, so interestingly enough, the family has actually, like, we came out with our very first wine was our Dark Matter Zinfandel. We came out the gate at $105 a bottle. It's now $135 bottle of Zin. The
Cheers.
family,
Here to that.
We sell out of that one on the spot. It's what we are known for. People seek us out for it, but it's barrel aged 4 years, new French oak, bottled aged an additional 2.5 years before releasing. And so that in itself is price points, varietal. The family doesn't even come close to sniffing up that avenue. So we already knew, we're like, okay, we've got our Zinfandel. Family doesn't, we had a Zinfandel port, but we didn't have a Zin. So we were like, okay, we know that we're not competing with the family portfolio. Chenin Blanc, same thing. The family did a one-off Chenin Blanc from Clarksburg a few years ago. And now they're producing a Chenin Blanc, but we actually got propagated some cuttings off of this heritage vineyard. They came back clean. Cool. We were able to propagate enough for 3 acres. We ripped out 3 acres in Yountville.
Of what?
Cabernet.
Where's Bart?
I know, Bart just left at the wrong time.
I love that story.
And this is what we're seeing happening. I'm sure it's happening throughout Sonoma as well, where I think it's fun. We're revisiting varietals that used to be present and prominent more in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s even. And we're I say everything's cyclical. So we're watching trends recircle back.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like the world it became like the stale palate. Like everybody was drinking the same Cabernet that tasted the same way, that was made the same way,
in
because
the same barrels,
Robert Parker said that it tasted good, and that's great and everything, but eventually it gets so boring, you want something else.
And there's so many varying palates as well. So that's why I think it's a huge problem when I do talk to consumers and I'll do a vintage side by side, and they're like, this vintage tastes so different from this vintage. And I was like, yeah, Mother Nature. And they're like, yeah, but then this wine tastes identical year in and year out, and that's why I buy it. And I was like, that's a manipulated wine.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a wine they have
that's
a formula.
Mad scientist wine.
That's a science project that happens on year in, year out.
Can we circle back on something that you said and we kind of glossed over it? The fact that you are one of 5 wineries able to host weddings in Napa.
Yes.
Do you get any blowback from some of the other wineries that are kind of jealous of the fact that you guys get that opportunity?
No, but I do know that there's like a black market wedding venue thing going on.
What?
Yeah, there's lots of private parties that I do know happen. Honestly, if I have to look back on it, I think it was more not pushed by the wineries, but more of the restaurants and in the valley, and making sure that restaurants, not every restaurant has the ability to serve food, and taking away the business from restaurants and venues and venue spaces and hotel spaces as well. And so I think that's how that was implemented over the years. And to be fully transparent, I have no idea how they established, because like Visa Tui is one of them, but he was not one of the original 5 wineries in the valley, the big 5. So I don't know how he got it, but a neighboring older winery down the road did not get it.
Right.
I don't know if that just happened to be who showed up at the table that day and was lobbying for it. Much like a lot of our AVAs in Napa and Sonoma County, it just was who showed up to lunch that day, because some of these lines are a little comical economical. And it was like, oh, well, we'll just draw the line right here. And the next vintner is, 100, 200 feet elevation lower. And so we'll just draw the line there, and they're in one region and we're in the other. So.
I'd never heard that argument. I didn't think about that the fact that like hotels and restaurant resorts
Correct.
would feel like that's competition if all the wineries are hosting.
I don't think that makes much sense though, because like if you're coming up for a wedding weekend, right? You and you're having the wedding at a winery, right? Like maybe they have accommodations for the bride and groom, maybe the immediate family, but like you're bringing up a lot of people here and they're coming up for a couple of days.
Banquets are a big dollar for hotels.
Yeah.
Their minimum starting, like actually our winery, Charles Krug is a value. We offer our property up for $16,000, and we're cheap. We're like half
$16,000. That's just a premise on that's like a site fee.
So that's the site fee, and that is half of like anybody else in the valley. Right. So there's so the venue fees, like there's a lot of hotels and resorts and all that they want that corporate business. Yeah. My family's property estate happens to be large enough that we're one of the few wineries that can host. Like we actually have a Jehovah Witness conference that's taking place on property this week, and 1,600 people.
No Jehovah Witnesses drink wine?
No, they don't.
No.
They actually do.
Do they?
They do.
They do
on the weekends.
Yeah, we had 200 volunteers that were partaking in tasting experiences over the weekend. That's because I thought the same thing at first. I was like, they drink alcohol?
Yeah.
Just not caffeine.
Yeah.
No birthdays.
Brilliant. Amazing people.
No birthdays for sure.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
I think that might be confusing Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, you might be.
I apologize.
Say Adventist.
I apologize.
SDA do not drink or consume caffeine in their meat.
Yeah. Don't go to Angwin and stay on the Duckhorn Vineyard if you want to go to the local store and get coffee, cigarettes, or a bottle of wine.
Yes, correct.
Learn my lesson.
Yeah. They now serve deli meat, though, at the Angwin market.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some sodas. That is now.
Oh, well, those are going to kill you faster than the cigarettes and the wine is anyway.
That's true.
I want to get into some dark matter. And is this the Zinfandel?
No, this one's actually the Cabernet.
This is going to be the Cab.
The
okay.
2021
but I don't know if you were here for that. The Zinfandel, the dark matter is in, what did you say, aged how long in barrel?
4 years, new French oak, and then 2.5 years in bottle before releasing. So the next vintage, we unfortunately did not get a 2020 vintage due to the fires. So that was a sad, took my sisters and I a couple weeks to cut 4 acres of fruit on the ground. But we did it ourselves and cried through most of it, drank lots of mimosas through, as we were cutting fruit on the ground, kissing our 2020 vintage goodbye. But our next vintage release will be the 2021, which is geared to release next year.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so what's the idea for the name Dark Matter and the label? Because we talked a little bit earlier, there was a little pushback on this label.
Yeah, quite a bit of pushback actually. This is Dark Matter was, as I mentioned, we started with the Zinfandel, and then in 2011, on one of our third Hell Mountain property that my parents purchased, we had a vintner back out of the contract since 11 was a challenging fun year for a lot of us growers. So we suddenly had access to fruit off our parents' property, which we were chomping at the bit to get, but we needed somebody to step away from their contract. And fortunately, in 2011, a vintner did. So my sisters and I were able to swoop in. We got our first vintage for the Dark Matter Cab in 2011. As I mentioned, we started with the Zen. It was officially the first bottle of alcohol to have a skull on the label because TTB originally denied it, and they said, when I asked them, having that paralegal background, I needed a reason as to why it was denied, and their response was, well, skull and crossbone is the universal symbol for poison and death. And I said, okay, that's great. Where's the crossbones on our label? And so they ended up going, oh, I guess she does have a point. Ended up approving it. So that was 2005. So we got approval, and immediately my parents said, well, maybe you girls should sit down with some of the your mentors in this valley, and get their interpretation or perspective.
And who might those be?
Well, we have a few, but so Kathy Simpson, marketing genius in Napa Valley. We also had Karen Cakebread, Paula Cornell. Just
shout out
to
Paula
name
Cornell,
a few. And Lisa Pavageau. So we have a lot of the old timers as well, original vintners that we leaned into as well. Every single one came back and said, don't do it. There's nothing luxurious about a skull. It does not belong on a bottle of wine. And my sisters and I think out of pure defiance, because as I mentioned, we were all under the legal drinking age. So Angelina was 20, I was 18, one sister was 16, and the youngest was barely 12. And when keep hearing no, out of pure defiance, we're like, sounds like we've got to do it. We've got to be the first to do 100%.
This. And didn't you think it was cool?
Oh yeah, we were instantly addicted. Absolutely loved it. And then we kind of had a humble experience once we decided to start showing it and going into wine shops, and every single buyer at that point was like, get out. And even God wouldn't spend $100 on a bottle of Zinfandel that's representing a skull. And I'm like, oh, so we heard that a few times. And we're like, well, sorry, I guess it's not up your alley. But try the juice. The juice is really good. And it's like, nope, don't want anything to do with that label. In fact, our grandfather, when we asked him, what do you think of it? He goes, love the juice, hate the label. He's like, I don't know where you girls came up with that design. And he goes, but keep doing what you're doing. It's shaking up the industry, ruffling some feathers and making a splash. So my sisters and I leaned really hard into the skulls. We were like, let's just run with it. So our antimatter is a blend between our Aloft Cabernet property and the dark matter Cabernet property. So it worked out perfectly, 50-50 for the juice. We only did 100 magnums, and it's a skull that's dripping gold and silver. And so we kind of leaned into it. We've got hats and swag.
You're like, really go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we've got the antimatter. And then we also launched a label last year called Humble Beginnings, has no front label whatsoever. TTB only requires certain information, just so happens doesn't need to be split between the front or the back label. So we just put it all on the back label and labelless front.
Labelless front.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of vintners are like, how can you guys legally do that? And I was like, I just interpret the laws.
The rules.
Yeah, I was like, it's easy. I was like, they mandate XYZ information, and it was just been us vintners who have decided we needed a front label. And then I
save money that way.
Carbon footprint, all of it minimized quite
and
a bit.
And then labeling on a bottling line, is it?
Yeah, but that little neck label's got to cost a little extra.
That one we do have to hand apply that the necker. So, I've got one that goes over the cork that says Humble Beginnings, just so you can identify the brand. But what some of the other comments have been, how does that stand out on a shelf, among others? And ironically, if you put it in a lineup against 10 other wines, it's the only one missing something. And you do
this.
Yeah, exactly. And one of our collectors happened to call me in a frantic, left me a frantic message and was like, Alycia, somebody messed up. Your label's missing the front label. And I'm just sitting there going, I didn't know what he was calling about yet. And so I call him back and I was like, and I of course get his voicemail, and I was like, I need you to send me a photo, because if it is something that went wrong, I need to be able to correct this. And then I end up getting a photo moments later, and it was like, there's no front label. And I was just like, oh, that's the label, that's the brand. And so we're also some of the first winery in Northern Hemisphere to accept cryptocurrency. So we launched that 5 years ago.
What? Wait, what? How did that come about?
I got bored during COVID and taught myself some things, and then spent.
Do you understand cryptocurrency?
Yes, but I also date somebody that's in cannabis, so that whole industry's been involved in crypto a little bit longer than the rest of us. So.
You actually talk about this at home.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. So crypto was that was a very interesting call. TTB and ABC. None of them knew what I was talking about, so I ended up on the phone call over a 2-week span. I ended up on the phone with both internal legal counsel for TTB and ABC because they're like, what are you trying to do? Mind you, this is in 2020. And so I was like, I need to be able to sell a bottle of wine in exchange for cryptocurrency and make sure I don't land my tush in jail. Or any of my sisters
Taxes,
for that matter.
Right?
So there's different reporting processes. And obviously it's still, there's a lot of policies and legislation that's happening as we speak.
And because you're still responsible for sales tax, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
And what percentage? I mean, it's got to be like 0.01% of bottles that you sell. Or is it?
At this point, it wasn't until the bubble. I think that was in 2021 when we had the Coinbase did the bouncing QR code on, and that's all of a sudden when crypto just totally ramped up on a different level. There are safety mechanisms in place because that's another interesting topic of. Within our community and world, some vendors are like, "Are you guys stupid?" or like, "What are you guys doing? Nobody else is doing this." Of course, none of our processing systems even offer it as a capability. So I taught myself how to build out all the wallets and connect everything on the back end. Still to this day, there's not a single processing system in the wine sector that accepts cryptocurrency. Those are conversations I've been having every single time I'm on the phone with one of those POS companies. I'm like, do you guys accept crypto yet? Right. Nope, not yet. It's not even, they all say it's close. And I was like, well, you guys have been saying that for 5 years.
We had a meeting about it once 3 years ago.
Exactly.
It's so close.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, what about Venmo? Because I know there are some, right?
Yeah, I think,
So I think Venmo.
I've accepted Venmo for.
Right.
I mean, you could just Venmo me. I'll give you some wine.
Yeah,
Venmo would be considered
Venmo's just money from your bank.
Right. But it's got to be documented in the.
It is.
And still pay sales tax. And
You still have to report every bottle where it goes to. You still have to follow all the legality and compliance.
It's just a click
That's
down.
kind of a fun little talking point, though. Do you go to any like crypto conventions?
I have been asked to speak. I would not consider myself an expert qualified enough to speak in that sector, but there have been politicians that have pulled me into private rooms to have discussions on, is this going away or what's going on? And
not anymore.
And the way I explain it, I was like, no, it's not going anywhere. It's off to the races. That cat is out of the bag. So, totally. It's a lot of, there's a lot of insecurities around what is crypto. And I think the most simplistic way I can put it is it's like investing in the stock market. You just can't cry over lost money if you make a bad investment. And there are, as I said, there's a lot of legislation and policies that are actively being worked on to define and regulate the crypto world.
Because are you the first one that you've ever heard of that accepts crypto?
On the Northern Hemisphere. There was somebody in New Zealand that beat us to it by 2 weeks. And honestly, I didn't even know. I thought we were going to be the first ones, and we had to change that messaging right as that happened, or right as we were gearing up to launch it. But it's an interesting topic of conversation.
It totally made me think of when I was working at Imagery in like 2004 or something like that. Do you know where I'm going with this? Joey, who I don't know, one of the Benziger brothers was friends of one of the guys that started Twitter.
Oh.
And one day we were just told that we didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. We're like, we're on Twitter, and we had and it was on our tasting menus, but none of us really understood what it was or like why we were doing it.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually remember my father doing a podcast, and it had to have been right around the original infancy of Twitter. So my sisters and I were familiar with it. My dad didn't know. And he goes, I don't know, I'm tweeting shit. And I was like, okay, well, we'll educate you on what's going on. It was like, because he goes, I don't understand what this is, and people are commenting, and it was like one of the live.
Yeah, we would we were like in real time post like what we were doing at the winery. Maybe it was Tim Wallace that was friends of.
And at that time you had Twitter meetups. And so you would schedule something, and everybody would go on, and I remember that. Now that you bring it out of the back of my brain.
Yeah, it was a thing at Benziger for a while, or at Imagery. We were kind of a younger crew there at Imagery. I think the crew up at Benziger probably would have been even more confused than we were.
Did you touch base on this already about where dark matter, like what is the significance of that, and limitless?
Yeah, so dark matter, I'll start there. That was actually a name in 2005. Here we had purchased our property in 2003. We got our first vintage off in 2005, and we were off to the races with our brand, but didn't know. I didn't have a name, needed to brand, design it, and all of that. And my older sister at the time was making wine, working dual hemisphere in Australia and back in Napa Valley. So when she was in Australia, she actually got her master's degree in Australia, University of Adelaide, as a enology and winemaking. And I went to visit her a couple of times, and I found the 2 times I went to visit, we were almost every night we were on our backs staring up at the stars, and we're just like, there's so much, it's limitless. There's drunk? So much up there. Yeah, basically. Yeah, we drank ourselves up to our backs, but you can see the Milky Way just so fiercely vibrant out there. And we spent quite a bit of time staring up at the sky, and my sister happened to call me, and she goes, "What about dark matter?" And I was like, "What? How did you come up with that name?" And she goes, "Well, you and I are always staring up at the stars and the sky and just wondering what's out there." And she said, dark matter, the mystique behind it, we immediately fell in love with. We were like, oh, this is a perfect not only name for a red wine, but we also loved the mystique about it. And mind you, that 20 years ago, and still to this day, we still know more about what it's not than what it is. Right. And we felt that kind of aligned nicely with the 4th generation Mondavis. A lot of people know of my grandfather and his brother Robert, but they don't know what the 4th generation's doing or what the next generation's doing either. And so we're like, it was a name that stuck, it fit, we trademarked it immediately, and it is one that we are constantly fighting to protect.
The label kind of reminds me of New Orleans. It's something about the skull with the
the sparkly skull.
It's got kind of a Bourbon Street vibe to it. Yeah. What is the next generation doing?
My sisters and I would be considered the 4th generation. Yeah. 5th generation is only 4.5, and we have a year. My cousins have a year-old. While they're not involved in the Aloft Dark Matter projects or Antimatter or Humble Beginnings, they are partners with us in the CK Mondavi. My grandfather, Peter, passed away 8 years ago at 101. Went to work every single day for up until 2 weeks before he died. He was president of
Sounds
the
like an Italian.
Yes. Right. A very stubborn Italian. In fact, when he was 75, there was a story that they threw him a retirement party on a Friday, and he showed up to work on Monday. And then just never stopped working. So that's my family. We are workaholics to an extreme almost. So as a next generation, our goal is to tend the land, get things corrected, so that we can manage and continue to have access to the lands that we currently own to continue to produce for another 100 years for us, and continue to carry on the legacy. I always say that the generations before us left very large shoes to fill. So we're trying our darndest to put our own thumbprint on something, but also continue on the path that the generations before us started.
And then some of the other things that you want to talk about, Giant Steps.
Oh, Giant Steps. Yeah, the therapeutic. I no longer serve on the board for them, but a beautiful organization. I'm an equestrian. I used to compete nationally. I dressage. And so I was riding horses before I could walk. There's a therapeutic component to horses that is unmatched by anything else I've ever experienced in my life. So Giant Steps provides is a therapeutic riding program for mentally and physically handicapped, whether it's veterans with PTSD or it is an individual that is struggling with their own personal physical handicaps or mental handicaps. We had riders that were blind, deaf, and completely paralyzed that were riding horses. I get goosebumps still because it touches and changes so many lives, and it's one thing that I will forever ever support moving forward, because I think it's therapy on a level that is unmatched by anything else. So,
are you still on the board, Napa Valley Vintners Association?
I am no longer a board member.
You're just quitting everything.
I full transparency. I hit a burnout point, and I was the one. I learned a saying a few years ago that if you ever want to get something done, you ask the busy person. And somebody turned around and said, "That's you, Alycia." And wow. I, at that point, said, "Oh, tap the brakes. I need to give myself some breathing room," because I realized I was giving everything I love doing up at the expense to help everybody else out. And as much as I love doing that, and that's always going to be kind of my core character, I needed a little bit of a break. So I stepped back from a few boards. I just stepped off of Festival Napa Valley board, was another board I was part of. And right now I think the focus is help the family businesses, and especially during a time like now where the industry is truly struggling. We've never seen it in the state we're experiencing today.
Even in the history of the Mondavi family?
In the history. I mean, in the late 80s, if you were to ask my parents, everybody even said the late 80s wasn't even this as rough as it is today. And while there are some people that think that this is just a quick blip in the road, this is going to be at least 10 years of course correction that we're going through. It's a course correction, I think, that honestly needed to happen like 10, 15 years ago. It just hurts a little bit more. We're going through it now. Would have been nice to do it
slowly over 10, 15 years.
Right. Yeah. And, but I do also think that part of the struggles we're experiencing today is our industry unintentionally adopted that false norm over COVID and responded to that demand. So our numbers are more in line with where we should have been had COVID never happened. So if you look at your 2019 numbers, I think we're not too far off from there.
So let's go COVID.
Oh, yeah.
A little more COVID?
Yeah, well,
I just had it. It was terrible.
Oh, no.
I know. That was weird.
Recently?
Yeah, just got over it last week.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Gosh. Which strain was that one?
I have no idea what strain it was.
Is anybody paying attention to that?
No,
I
know.
Anymore?
I didn't even know it was still a thing, but my son had a really terrible, his throat hurt terribly, and he had a really bad stomach ache, and he had a really high fever. And I was like, what combines all three of those? Maybe it's COVID.
Oh, boy.
And, so you just got back from traveling, right?
No, I was not traveling. No. We were just, we went to Houston for 4th of July, but I don't know where we got it. Apparently my husband looked it up, and it's they test the water, and it's just rampant in the North Bay right now.
Oh, in the water.
Yeah.
So they test the wastewater.
The wastewater.
Yeah.
No, not our drinking water.
Got
it. Wastewater.
Got it.
Wastewater, which just means it's out there.
Yeah. People have it, but they're probably not testing for it. The only reason I tested for it was because I have no idea what we have. And then my daughter had gotten sick too, and just the high fever, it scares you. So
yeah.
Your kid gets a fever, you stick a Q-tip up their nose these days. That's what you do.
Right.
What do you want to? Anything you want to promote that you got going on?
Oh, I think the newest projects are the CK Mondavi, the new label. So keep an eye out on your shelves for that.
And that's what we have is the new label.
Yeah.
Is this out in the world yet?
This one, it just started shipping within the last couple months. That was a fun challenge to be able to shift my brain from focusing on small high-end labels to now I'm focusing on a value brand. The photos, the collage that's on that label is very sentimental because I read. We have my grandparents' house is still in the original condition that they left it in. It's kind of our little museum, if you will. But I raided the closets and went into all the photo albums and pulled some photos. And so those are all very nostalgic, personal photos. And then, of course, had to add the prohibition repeal sign in there because prohibition is what launched my family's career in this industry. And my grandfather, used to smuggle over wheels of Parmesan and legs of prosciutto in the barrels that he had shipped over from France. Yeah, and so when my grandfather told the story, when you go, what made you source French oak as opposed to continuing with, either American oak or Hungarian oak is predominantly what we were using back then. And he said, I needed a way to smuggle over my prosciutto and Parmesan. And so we grew up with him hand slicing prosciutto on a regular and just chunks of Parmesan as our snack and treats. The Charles Krug estate, which is where we were raised, there's 3 family homes on the property. So it was very much a Mondavi family compound. And so my parents raised my 3 sisters and I in one home. About 100 yards up the road was Grandma and Grandpa's house, and 100 yards past them was my aunt, uncle, and our 2 cousins. So it was very much a family compound, still very much as a family compound and family business as well. So I'm really excited about the CK Mondavi label, and plus to seeing my work interpretation on 800,000 bottles as opposed to, or 800,000 cases as opposed to, 100 cases is very different. So, but the response has been phenomenal so far. And there's a photo in that collage that will resonate with almost anybody in somebody has a story, and people have already started coming forward.
For the record, right? This is the only wine
in that competitive set
that has the Mondavi name on it.
Correct.
That is actually made by Mondavis.
Right.
Yes, correct. Right. Yeah, that is correct. And as you guys are fully aware, Robert Mondavi the name is sold again. Right. So again. Robert Mondavi, well, it's 2004 when it first sold and to Constellations, and then Constellations just resold it again. So it is still corporately owned. There has not been a Mondavi influence with the Robert Mondavi brand and that side since its sale in 2004. They did a really good job of with their marketing to make it seem like Robert was actually, some people still think Robert's still alive.
Well, I mean, even as of the last few years, there was a TV commercial where
that's exactly Robert on a tractor working the vineyard.
But was it him, or was it someone that looked like him?
Yeah, Robert had passed away about 10 years prior.
Yeah, but I mean, it was full on like.
They just went to Central Casting and found an old Italian man.
Yeah.
It's fucked up, man.
Yeah, and even the verbiage was like...
It was deceiving. It definitely made you seem like there was still family involved. And I speak on a weekly basis at conferences and conventions, and I talk a lot on family businesses and estate planning, succession planning, because our family has been very aggressive in that avenue. And I'll be damned, there's so many people that still to this day think Robert Mondavi is still owned by the Mondavis.
Sticking his nose in every barrel. Just
And then if people want to get a hold of Aloft or Dark Matter, I think these are, what are they, member only?
They are member, mailing list wines because of how tiny they are. Aloft, you can get Aloft through the aloftwines.com website. Dark Matter is darkmatterwines.com. I'm actually in the process of designing the Mondavi Sisters collection page as we speak. I'll have that website probably up and running by the end of this year. And then CK Mondavi at all of your value stores you can find.
By the end of this year, I love that. If I could ever say that in my job, I'll have that done by the end of this year.
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it actually happens.
It used to be, I'll get that done tomorrow. And I kept saying tomorrow.
Let's have Jasmine fact check that one.
Yeah, I've never said that.
Yeah, so now it's by the end of this year, because that's a little bit more realistic with my timeline these days. But
So if people want to taste the Dark Matters and the other brands.
So Dark Matter and Aloft, we sadly do not have a tasting room.
Okay. I didn't know if there was something at Mondavi.
Charles Krug Winery, we do have tastings, but for the Charles Krug brands. Yeah. So if you want an experience with any of my family, you'd have to come to Charles Krug Winery to experience that. Unfortunately, another fun topic is we've been trying 16 years, and we're about $1 million in and not a day closer to getting signed off on our Aloft winery permit. So that's another fun project.
Wow.
Just there's a theme of Napa County.
Yeah.
I know.
Governmental.
It's actually
inefficiency and
turning out
weirdness.
to be where families go to die their businesses right now. They are not supporting the family owned projects, and they are paving the way for the corporate worlds. And
we had Lindsay Hoops on a month or so ago.
Oh, did you? Yeah. And
that
she's right battling it head on right now.
And Matt Crafton, the winemaker Chateau Montelena, is going to be on in a couple weeks, and he's got some fun hot takes on what's going on in Napa right now. I do personally sat through one of our very first hearings on our winery project, and sat through 2 hours of opposition. We had people fly in across the country to oppose us. And
for what basis?
For what? Yeah, what are they opposing?
They don't want the winery. They don't feel that there should be any more development in the Napa County area or any area. The big thing was like environmental impact. There was the concerns. There's also opposition parties that were providing false information. So they're like, oh, well, these girls, they're too young and irresponsible to own a winery. So it's just going to be their bar party venue. I'm like, nope. Actually, if you met any of us, we don't even party. It's like we're all workaholics. We don't have time to party. But things from that. There are also the assumptions that we have to remove trees to put in our winery. In our case, we actually have to remove an acre of vineyard, not a single tree, to put the winery in. But there were numbers like they're all, oh yeah, they're gonna have 200,000 visitors a year.
Right.
I'm like, where are you pulling these numbers from? I was like, that's not even.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Seriously.
They're going to flush the toilet 20 million times this year.
Yeah. So there's just, unfortunately, the way the opposition has been combating us has been with misinformation, and you can only do so much and take so much of it before we just like right now we've paused it because it has been a contentious topic, and so we're like. It's also been very expensive, and so just trying to navigate that. But yeah.
So where is the
Howell Mountain in Angwin is our 60-acre parcel. But we've had everything thrown at us from fires to we don't need any more foot traffic up there and all of that, or car traffic and things like that. So it's we'll see what happens, but. Seems like the corporate guys are the ones getting things approved.
There's a lot of got in, close the door behind you.
Yeah. There's a lot of behind the door conversations that I think would floor a lot of people. Yeah. That that was sort of the subtext of what Lindsay was saying too. There's a lot of shit that goes on.
Gotta get on that board of supervisors.
Yeah,
in all your free time.
Actually, come on, you quit everything else.
So
she lives in Lake County.
You're gonna laugh, but I did step out of that hearing, and I looked up what the qualifications to be a supervisor was, and it's high school degree. You don't even have to be a resident, and it was insane.
You don't even have to be a resident.
When I saw that was not even a requirement, it was a high school degree, and I was like, well, I happen to be a resident, and at that time I was living in Napa County, and so I submitted my name. And I was like, and then the race happened, and I did get were you serious about running? And I'm like, no, but there's some people that need to relinquish their seats because they're part of the problem. But I was like, if that means I have to run to make some change happen, I will. So,
yep.
Well, we'll host your campaign party.
Luckily for everybody, I am not meant to be a politician. I do not have that poise or grace to be able to.
No, but that's what we need. That's not what we're looking. Not looking for poise or grace. We're looking for someone with common sense.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very
Thank
true.
you for coming over.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you
sharing
guys.
The stories
I really
and the wines. It's super cool.
Thank you for your time as well.
Yeah.
Glad this works.
What do you guys want to?
We got somebody walking up.
Okay, cool. I'll go.
We have a box of wine in his hand.
That's the chef from Madcap.
Oh,
that's Ron
sweet.
Siegel.
Okay, cool.
What's up, chef? Hey, what's up? Good. I'll be right with you. We're just closing out a podcast here. Yeah, you got it. So we had a great dinner the other night at Madcap. There's the chef. Yeah, we did 8 courses, all paired with 16600 wines. If you've never been to Madcap in Marin, it's in San Anselmo. It's a Michelin star restaurant. And around the corner is a bar called Sonora Sam's that if any of you follow me on Instagram, I walked in there just to get a glass of wine before I was waiting for the restaurant to open up. And they had 16600 vinyl pads on their turntables. And they were pouring Jack's Fresh Go wines, and
this is like his Cali Fuego or something, right?
Yeah. So we're gonna find a way to get our wine in there. I'm like,
they have the cork slip mats on their turntables, but they don't have any of the wine on the list.
Right. I love that. That was my point. That was my point.
Right? No, we should be known for the corked slip mats.
Gotta love
it's not that big. It's not that big a company. There must be something you could do to figure that out.
I don't know.
And then I talked that we were going to have
it done by the end of the year.
We're going to have the winemaker from Chateau Montelena on, but do you just want to tease the 280 project?
Oh yeah, we're recording that next week too with Chris Renfro.
Yeah.
I wish I could speak on it more specifically, but Chris is growing some grapes in like Diamond Heights in San Francisco and making a bunch of wines with like indigenous grape varietals and also just doing a lot of good stuff in the community and a lot of charitable outreach and so somebody we've wanted to have on the show for a while. And he made a wine with our good friend Coral, which 16600 donated a pallet or two of glass to.
Yeah.
And my total, Chris, when you listen to this, 100% ulterior motive in donating that glass was to make sure that you could get on the show. So we're excited to have that one, and then there's a bunch of other stuff going on. Bart, do you want to, before we start listing off all the 16600 events that go on forever, drop a little info on this travesty happening in Sonoma County?
You know what? I don't know that I'm completely prepared to talk about it, but the Sonoma County wine growers and the Sonoma County vintners proposed a wine improvement district. It's been done in other areas of California, and essentially what they want to do is they want to charge. I believe it's 1%, but between 0.5% or 1% of on all direct to consumer sales. So that would be anything sold out of the tasting room, any wine club, and then that money would go to those entities, and they would determine how they are going to promote Sonoma County.
With that money. They have no real plan as to what specifically. If you go on and read what they're proposing, it's what we do on a normal basis anyway. It's not like they've come up with this great new way to promote wine in Sonoma County. Right. It's the same old thing. It seems like maybe they're running out of money in their own budgets because everybody's getting a little tighter, and they figured that they could push this through without a real plan. And they're getting pushback now. And so they're getting pushback from the head of the Sonoma County vintners stepped down just after the press release was put out. There's been people who have been coming out against it. There's no plan. And so a friend of the pod, Adam Lee, I noticed this morning, started a petition where he's trying to get enough people that are in the business or anybody to sign up and oppose it. Stakeholders is the word.
Stakeholders.
So if you drink wine, you're a stakeholder.
Yeah. And just to oppose this. And, this has to go through county approval. The county supervisors need to approve it also. So it was something that they were trying to push through without a real end plan. They were holding their cards very close. They're obviously not going to ask me to join their organization because I've been outspoken about it, but they never asked anyway in the first place.
Right. I think that ship has sailed for me too on separate topics.
Yes, exactly. So, it would have benefited the large wineries. No disrespect to a large winery sitting here with us. But this particular plan just wouldn't have done anything except for help the large wineries who seem to definitely need the help.
I
But
don't even know if I know a large winery that would support that either. Because
I mean,
everybody's trying to increase their DTC
I understand.
avenue and sales components.
And the thing about it is it was literally going to be another line item on your receipt. So, I've still had people that said, what's this CRV? Because they don't know about it. Or maybe they're from a state and they do, but they're still questioning it because they're seeing it now. So this would have been another line item. I had some guests at the tank this last week. They were from New Jersey. When they were coming out for their trip, they were reading news about Sonoma. And the first thing they did is they walked in, they said, hello, we're happy to be here. And they said, what's the deal with this new tax? He goes, everything I read says the wine industry is hurting and you need more visitors. And that's why we're here. He goes, but I don't understand why now you want to charge an extra tax on top of tasting fees.
On the people who are here to try and get more people here.
Right.
As opposed to maybe taking care of the people that are here.
Right. So.
There'll be more of this, but this is sort of the beginning.
Hopefully it's the beginning of the end.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. So.
Again, it'll be the big corporations pushing down on the family businesses. That'll be the fight. Yeah.
Can't happen.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that whole story because I was like, wait, what are we?
I think they don't
Why
want
are
you
we-
to understand this whole story.
Why are we making it hard for people
Yeah.
to come here and drink wine?
so
Sarah,
we can market better.
So there's an article.
No one's helping us.
Yeah, no one.
Yeah.
There's an article in the Press Democrat. Of course, it's behind the paywall, but I'll try to share it. That Sarah Doyle from the Press Democrat wrote last week.
Friend of the pod.
A friend of the pod, without a doubt. And she did a great job. And a matter of fact, she just sent me a text message saying, would you be willing to share her? Oh, she wants us to help share it on her social media channels.
Okay.
So
We got you, Sarah.
We got you, Sarah. So yeah, look for the information. It's out there. And yeah, if you want to come taste and the tasting fee is something that's keeping you from doing it, call me and tell me that. And guess what? You can come taste for free.
Free tastings at the tank.
You know what?
Hey Siri, call Dane. Bart Hansen.
I'm serious. Like, it's
right.
I understand how we got there,
Yeah.
and I do. I charge a tasting fee. I think it's reasonable. You guys have a tasting fee. I think it's reasonable.
I mean, the lights
but if
are on.
that's what's
Right.
keeping from people from coming, then let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Buy a couple bottles of wine, and there's no tasting fee.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
We'd rather sell you wine than charge you for coming and doing
Absolutely.
a tasting.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
From Dane Sellers in 16600 to Charles Krug. Every winery will say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know why they got away with that, with excusing the tasting fee if you buy a couple of bottles of wine.
Are
'Cause
people abandoning it completely?
A lot of people are
Yes, I mean,
charging the fee before you
charging
even
the fee.
set foot.
Oh, really?
You charge the fee and
Oh.
then people buy the wine, and like maybe it's like if you join the wine club, they'll waive one tasting fee. No,
Oh, goodness.
but
Yeah,
it's
Well, I mean, there was a winery in Napa that it was a very expensive tasting fee, and in order to get your tasting fee back, you had to buy at least 6 bottles. And if you know what those high-priced Napa Valley Cabernets are, 6 bottles of it, that's not that great a deal.
No, not at all.
Yeah. You still got to pay for your hotel room.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well, what we're actually seeing on the Napa County side is most of our collectors that are coming in now are staying Sonoma County because they can get more reasonable rates at a hotel or lodging. And then instead of doing, their whole week in Napa, now they're staying Sonoma, doing the whole week in Sonoma, and maybe coming to Napa for a day
Yay.
or something. So.
And we
So
got a 2
sorry to hear
Michelin
that.
star restaurant.
No, I
here
know.
now.
It's great. No, it is. It's absolutely great. And I'm a big fan of Sonoma wines. That's
Yeah.
why my sisters and I had to launch one last year because we love what you guys grow and produce out
I know.
here.
We finally got a rival for a French Laundry in Single Thread. We're like, oh.
And
gotta
is it
come over
good?
and check out Sonoma. Have you been?
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's art. It's like on a different level.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's Our industry, we're very fortunate. I mean, I know we're all struggling at the moment, but it's a fun industry, and it's one of the few industries that there's a little something for everybody. And even though my palate might be night and day different from somebody else's palate at this table, there's wine for you, there's wine for me, and there's wine for the next person.
It's a beautiful struggle.
Do we shout out Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers? You guys?
Oh yeah, Vintage Festival is, you guys kill me.
Hell of a board.
I mean,
September 25th through 27th, the Sonoma Valley Vintage Festival. Tickets are available. On the 25th is the Vintners Grand Dinner. On the 26th is the Grand Tasting in the Barracks, the all-day festival on the Plaza. So great event. Room for families.
Assemble your teams
for the stomp grapes.
I can throw potatoes at salamis.
You can throw potatoes at salamis, but you can do that on 4th of July now also.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel the same as Vintage Festival.
Right. Yeah. So there you go.
Direct to consumer. I saw that early registration is now open, so you can go on and let's start filling this thing up.
Let's fill it up.
I mean, Barbara told me the last time I talked to her that it's filling.
Well, it must be our excellent, highly professional promotional efforts.
It has to be, because why else would so many people from across the United States be signing up to come to Monterey in January?
Right. Why would you want to leave Iowa and go to Monterey in January? I couldn't imagine any other reason.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And then, I mean, you're obviously going to Dead & Co.
Yes. As this show comes out, I will be... Actually, Friday night, we're taking Althea and my nephew Hudson. So, Althea wants to see Billy Strings.
And if you're going to the shows, stop at Luke's Local on 9th Avenue, the gateway to Golden Gate Park, and you can pick up one of the 16,600 cans of wine with the Stanley Mouse artwork on your way.
And then figure out how to smuggle it into the venue.
I mean, they're small. They're 8 ounces. You can probably fit like 6 of them in your pants.
It's been possibly tested.
Totally. And then we got Stanley Mouse party going on August 10th.
August 10th. With the Rowan brothers and Fiorella cooking.
Oh, it's gonna be
and then also, the time is now to buy your sorbet tickets for August 17th.
Oh, yes, sorbet.
Sorbet, Sonoma Organic Regenerative Biodynamic Educational Tasting. I say it faster every time.
So good at that.
I really have perfected that. And we got like 35 wineries signed up now, and there's going to be a ton of wine. It's going to be amazing. August 17th, 1 to 4, Fort Mason.
Cool. Danielle, you going to be pouring?
I will be pouring, yes.
I'll
be there.
Some of that mostly Mourvedre from
I will be pouring mostly Mourvedre, yes.
And I have to give a shout out to a number of listeners who heard that I will not be attending, but my wines will be there, and they're all volunteering to come and pour.
We don't have to do it.
Your customers are trying to get in free.
That's exactly right. I didn't ask that, but it does appear to be that way. So anyway.
So who are you going to pick? Should we do a contest?
I think we're breaking up. Thanks for listening. This has been the Winemakers.
All right. Thanks, Alycia. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
These wines are great.
Thank you very much.
Go find a bottle of CK Mondavi Sauvignon Blanc.
There you go.
Right.
Buy them all.
Buy them all. Well, we only tasted the Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, no, here's the thing. They come in 750s and mags.
Oh.
Yeah, it's party.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Subscribe, review, tell your friends, but only the cool ones.
Yeah.